So you just finished round 4. So we're going to look at this company's example of going from year 3 to year 4 results. And we see that profit margins only went up 5%. So they owned 5 points on the gross profit margins. Only went 3 percentage points from 57 to 60, or 5% up. But operating profit margins went down and net profit margins went down by 6%. And this was because in the operating profit margin area, advertising becomes a bigger and bigger cost as the companies grow in the industry. So if the profits aren't growing faster than the marketing, you're going to see downward operating profit margins, and that's going to result in a downward net profit margin. Also, if you have a round where you're picking up a lot of assets, opening up factories, making investments in your company, you might see a loss of points in the total asset turnover. And if you look at your return on, this could affect your return on equity and your return on assets. When you pick up a lot of assets by borrowing money or to build out your assets. And this would be what you would call an investing round. So at the end of the day, your forecasts were pretty accurate. You had made investments in your company 100% or more, and you had a surplus, but still only pulled in 291 points because some rounds are building rounds where you can't always get the full 400 or 500 points, but you're building up to it. So in the next round, you can get to a much higher level. So when you go into your sales, you notice that when you're doing year 5, if you make enough investments, you can push up your operational cost reductions. Here they doubled. So I'm able to move my profit margins from 59 to 70% and exceed or improve on all of my features on the car. So I'm making a much better car and I'm getting a better profit margin because of the investments I made in this space. So if you look at, here's the sedan moving from $6,000 a car, cost reductions from year 4, and year 5 I'm getting $12,000. So again, I'm able to push this up to 70 percentile and at the same time improve upon all of my statistics on the car. Okay. Now you'll notice that marketing is increased. Production could be getting more expensive. You may have to buy some more production plants. But by and large, by the 4th or 5th round, you want to start retiring some funds, buying back some stock, retiring some debt. And this could also help you to earn more points as you improve upon. In your overview, you'll see that your quick ratio and debt ratio will begin to improve. So I've just made those investments now. Let's see if they improve next round. Okay, so looking at the charts for round 4, we see that as far as net profits, we have a new leader in net profits, Team 9, with 176 million in net profits. And we have a number of teams, most teams are above 100 million now in net profits. And a lot of teams are above or close to 150. If we look at points per team, we have a new points leader, Team 4, with 568 points. But by and large, most teams are between 400 and 500 points, which is good. If we look at stock price, we have a few companies down here in the 50s, and then we have fans out all the way up until the $100 mark in stock price. And these are just small decisions companies have been making in their profits, their sales. All the decisions affect the stock price, but by and large, increasing profits is what's going to push your stock price up the fastest. Okay, sales, we have this company company 19 is still number 1 in sales, followed by Team 5 and Team 7, over 600 million, almost 700, 600, over 650 million. This company is getting close to the 700 million mark. We had one company here really bounce back in their sales, which is great. And also this company here, this blue company, 2023 Motor Industries also greatly improved their sales this round, which is fantastic. Earnings per share, we have a new number 1 in earnings per share, and which is great. And we have a few companies. So these companies are all above 15, but we have a few companies here who aren't breaking 10 yet on earnings per share. Okay. Let's look at some more charts. Actually, look at the leaderboard. Okay, so these are just the points for this team. If you look at gross profit, some teams are approaching, starting to approach 70%, which is where you should be. And hopefully in round 5, it'd be great to be closer to 70%, or at least in the 60 percentile for most teams. If you are still in the 40s, 49 or lower, you need to really move that up into the high 50s if you can this round. In Team 41, you started at 40% profit margins, and after 4 years, you're still at 40% profit margins. So that's not pleasing or exciting investors. If we move down to, let's look at cumulative points. We see that total points here. One team is already, Team 9 is already have their 2,500 points for the full project. So now they just have to make sure they don't lose any points in the last 2 rounds, rounds 5 and 6. So any team that you can easily earn 800 points in 400 points in round 5, 400 points in round 6. So that 800 points would mean that if you have at least 1,700 points by this round, which you see here, almost all teams could, at 700 points, can easily add another 800 points to get to that 2,500. So there's only 2 teams here that's going to have to really hustle to get to that 2,500. But most teams aren't on target to make it to that 2,500 points to get the full points for the project. So again, with the operating profit margins, they're going to be tough as marketing goes up. So you're going to want to do a marketing analysis to see. You could look at in your charts. If you go to your team performance chart, you want to look at. You can see these are all helpful here. But I go down to the bottom and I'm going to look at. I had more demand for 2 of my cars than I produced. So my marketing is actually, I'm losing. I could have sold more cars. My marketing is very effective here, but here I had some cars that my demand was, I met all my demand, so maybe I could have marketed a little bit more. Maybe and I definitely had some. If we look at the production area, I had some unsold inventory for, let's see, at least 1 vehicle. Okay. So yeah, so for economy, I should have advertised a little bit more for economy. Maybe I advertised too much for the other companies, but I can look at charts and I can look at the marketing charts. And I can kind of see in the marketing chart area how much am I spending compared to my peers. And then I can kind of compare, if I wanted to go into the industry page, I can start looking at the market potential of different competitors. And I can see how much are they spending in advertising compared to me. Am I greatly spending more than the average company or much less than the average company? So I might go in and I might say this company, Team 9, is number 1. So I might do a search for Team 9, and I might see, okay, so they spent $35 million in advertising. This is their market potential, and I might want to look at, my company. I might see that I spent $31 million. Okay, so maybe I underspent in my advertising, but my market potential was a little bit higher. Maybe I had better cars. So there's just some analysis you have to do as a competitor to kind of see what are the other companies doing and what can I learn from them and how can I improve my results. And as always, so you can see how advertising really took off in year 4, and it's going to go even higher as and this is the top company in advertising, some of the bottom companies, and you can kind of look at how that's affected. We know Team 40 was a little bit low on their overall profits, and maybe if they advertised more and focused on higher profits, they could sell the same amount of cars but make more money on it. So these are things that you need to look through, as well as going over your, let's just go back up here, go to the top, close this. As well as looking at your assessment page to see how you're doing in different areas and getting some feedback there. And then beginning into the next round. Now remember, on your company page, you have team members. So if in the team cooperation area, you can kind of follow up if any team members are really not helping. You should also talk about, one thing that greatly helps some teams I've noticed that are doing very well in the rounds, who are performing very highly in their overall scores and such, are teams that are working together. So some teams take an approach where, okay, Sally, you do it this week, Bobby will do it next week, Sarah will do it the following week, Mike will do it the week after. So you're splitting up the work, and maybe two of you are strong performers, but then you get to the weak link in your group and they do a round by themselves and they just torpedo your whole company. So you can't try to make it where you're minimizing your work as much as possible. You really have to work as a team. And some of the teams that are performing very strongly, they're meeting together on Zoom. So they're having a Zoom conference together as a team. They are, while they're working on the sim, they're using a chat where they're chatting back and forth with each other, as well as, sharing a screen on the Zoom conference. These teams are working together. So they're reviewing each other's work. They're talking about their decisions. One team is actually, using the practice rounds. More than one team are using the practice rounds, and they're trying to put their decisions that everyone's making into the practice round to see what the result is. You're not going to have an identical result in the team competition, but it's going to be pretty close. And there are some teams that are building spreadsheets that are using the spreadsheets to forecast their using their pro forma financial statements to forecast the change in their financial ratios using the information learned in Chapter 3. And Chapter 4, and they're really putting a lot of effort into this, and they're getting some top results. So if your team is sort of the bottom half or the bottom third or bottom 10% of performers in the class, you might want to ask yourself, is it because we haven't really put in a fair amount of team effort into the project? We've just been kind of coasting along and doing the minimum. So those are just things to ask yourself, and maybe you could figure out ways to improve your process to get better results. Okay, so that's it for the review of round 4 and some hints for round 5. Good luck in the next round, which is due on Thursday. We only have 2 rounds left. Goodbye.